So the film really documents a special time, a lost time of the alchemy of sound and vision. Can you talk about what was your inspiration for this story?
I guess it was a number of things, but I think when I like the idea of innocent sounds that when I'm making my dinner after work and I stab cabbages, and it's something that all of us do and associate with a good meal afterwards. But it's just about association and recontextualizing things, and that sound, if you put it to a perverted priest stabbing a woman, it's just incredibly disturbing. So I guess I didn't want to be too art school about it and talk about, you know, all these things to do with association, but it just really fascinated me. But that also led into Kathy Berberian's track called Visage, which she did with her husband, Luciano Berio, which is this kind of avant-garde 20-minute piece of howling. And it just reminded me of, bless you, Penderecki, which most people regard as, you know, difficult music, but when Kubrick used this stuff in The Shining, just people kind of get it. And I think horror, I think many people say that horror is a really good genre to warm people up to ideas they wouldn't normally accept, especially in music. So I guess Berberian is in this kind of sonic no man's land between I guess academia and high art and trash, which I love. But also I think it's also in this no man's land between unspeakable horror and this ridiculous pantomime element of men smashing watermelons, which still goes on to this day. I think it's the one line of work in sound where you won't be superseded by a machine.
Can you talk about your influences for the music in the film? I mean, we were talking yesterday about how this was a very interesting time for these films, that a lot of people look down on the Italian horror films and giallo films, which mean basically kind of slasher detective thrillers. But at the same time, it was such a rich period for avant-garde meeting the sound of the image. The scores, the title sequence is so typical of films from that time. I mean, personally, I could watch that on a loop for 90 minutes. It's just so beautiful and striking. Can you talk about Italy and why Italy?
Well, it had to be really. If I think of Morricone's first band, which I'm going to attempt to pronounce them, Gruppo di Improvvisazione Nuova Consonancia, and they were doing horror soundtracks. Bruno Maderno, who was hanging out with John Cage, he was doing the soundtrack to Death Laid an Egg. So this was very unique in the world. You didn't have this correlation. Maybe you had the BBC Radiophonic Workshop in the UK, but they weren't really doing horror. So I just thought, oh God, I don't want to do another language again, because my first one was in another language. But it had to be Italy. It just couldn't be anywhere else. And I think, you know, I don't have any experience of Italy. I'm half Greek, so I have a sense of some of the things like nepotism in the film. Yeah, I just find it very unique in terms of how music was done then, and it's not done that way now. All those elements in terms of free jazz and dissonance and musique concrète, it all sounds very anal, but when you hear it on record, it's just wow. I mean, I'm sure you know the Bird of the Crystal Plumage soundtrack. It's just, you can listen to it. No, you don't know? Okay, buy it, it's fantastic. And I think even the photographs, there's this great album by Morricone's Gruppo band, it's called Musica su Schemi on the Cramps label, and it's got a photograph of these balding middle-aged men in polo necks, barring gongs and all kinds of electroacoustic activity. And there's a chessboard in the foreground and there's an orange telephone. So in your head you just start to make up stories about what happens next in the studio during their lunch break. And it's just, yeah, you can have a riot with these things, it's great.